Hello and welcome to the Savage Goose. This is the show where we talk about all things in Savage Worlds from the past week, and then we have a discussion. And we got some people to join us today to talk about that discussion. The discussion being, we'll talk about it later. We'll tell you what it is later. But first, I'm going to introduce you all to Ross Watson and Brandon from Anvil Studios. They're going to be joining us today to talk about. I'll just say it now. We're going to talk about their Kickstarter today for Starbreaker, Saints, and Synners. So we'll get into that. Say hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh. Technical difficulty. There you go. So as always, we're going to go over the newsletter. We're going to talk about some Kickstarter, some other news if there is any, which I don't think I have any extra news today. Actually, no, I do. I do have some extra news. And then we're going to get into our main topic, talking about Starbreaker. So thank you all for joining it. And then, guys, if you just let us know if you want to talk about anything. So first, the newsletter. And then, as always, I got to change what I'm sharing. There we go. Oh, no, I don't like that. Just removed all you guys. There we go. So first off, the first thing is the Deadlands Abominable Northwest Kickstarter. That is going on currently. That launched today, as well as like two other Kickstarters today for Savage Worlds products. So we'll get into that a little bit, but that's the main thing from Pinnacle today is the Deadlands Abominable Northwest Kickstarter launched, which has a lot of cool goodies. They also had some news recently that I guess we'll get into that at the end of this email. Really, I have some cool news about what's happening with them and stuff, but we'll get to that later. But a lot of cool stuff for the Abominable Northwest. If you're into Deadlands, if you have like all the Deadlands stuff in your that's like one of your main games, there's gonna be a great book and a great set of things that you can get for your Deadlands game, including a cool graphic novel that they kind of showcased in the live stream. By the way, this live stream being pushed to 9 has nothing to do with their live stream. It's just a happy coincidence. So yeah, but this there's going to be a little graphic novel that you can get for the game and for just to read through. I think it looks really nicely done. I'm looking forward to kind of reading that. It's more my speed for reading. We have 3 new Savage Worlds releases for Fantasy Grounds. We had some stuff for Midnight Tales and then Savage ETU, Study Abroad. Those are all now available on Fantasy Grounds. If you use Fantasy Grounds, I do not, so I'm not as don't really care as much. That's fine. If you do, go ahead and check it out. Do you guys use any VTTs for your games?
We do. We produce quite a few VTT products for some of our stuff, but I wouldn't say we're all in on it.
Okay. Is there a particular one that you favor towards?
I'm trying to pick one out. So I've not really used a lot of VTT myself. I've used Owlbear Rodeo a little bit because it's easily available.
It's so simple.
And then I'm looking at between Fantasy Grounds and Foundry to pick one that I feel like is going to work best, because I mean I'd love to make stuff for everything so everybody can have whatever they want, but I'm trying to find one that I enjoy so that I can make sure that when it's put out it's fun to use.
Yeah, for our games we tend to use Owlbear Radio just because it's so simple to use, and just because throw a map there. We don't use it for anything else. It's just for the map. And it's just so simple. Going down here, it is spooky season. Today's October 1st. It is, well, a lot of you probably started, or a lot of us, a lot of people started spooky season probably as soon as September rolled around, maybe as soon as Labor Day was over. And that's how my wife was. She started putting up not necessarily spooky stuff, but like all pumpkins everywhere. As soon as Labor Day, that's like our marriage agreement, is like she can start doing harvest like fall stuff as soon as Labor Day's over. That's when summer to me is over. That's when you can start doing fall stuff. But spooky season is upon us, and so with that, there is a sale on a whole bunch of products from Pinnacle, 20% off for a bunch of spooky products. There are some really fun ones. I can speak highly of ETU, obviously Deadlands. Holler is a really good, well-made product. I got the little leather-bound copy here. I don't know if they still have this, but this is a really nice copy. It's even signed in here.
I have that one too.
Yeah, signed in the right there. It's a nice book. So, and then Rippers, I've also played in Rippers, and that's been a lot of fun as well. And then obviously the Horror Companion is very helpful if you want to play horror games. So look at those. This week on the Savage Universe stream, we're having a repeat. You get some deja vu later this week. So if you don't get your question answered today, or if you think of a question afterwards, or if you're watching like the replay, the video on demand, and you're like, oh, you know what, I want to ask them a question, just go over to the Savage Universe stream on Thursday, answer your question there, so that you get all your questions answered. So you get like 2 chances. You get today, and then you get Thursday. So yeah, you got this.
We're everywhere.
Yeah, everyone's everywhere. That's at 10 p.m. Eastern, so it's an hour later than tonight's live stream, and 2 hours later than what my live stream usually is. And actually, I think it's about like 3 hours later than their usual live stream. But yeah.
Also, that is a interview with pure uncut Brandon Verhalen. It is going to be him on his own without me. He's going to be doing all of this great information about the setting that he's been working on for a very long time.
Yeah, so if you have any questions for Ross, ask him
tonight. Yeah, that'd be wise.
Grab him now before he escapes.
Yeah, we'll get some stuff in there
because Ross will be asleep by that time.
Me too. So let's see here. Legacy Spotlight, Deadlands: The Weird West companion audiobook. That is a Kickstarter that's going on currently. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the Kickstarter section. But basically, just they're working on an audiobook for Deadlands and for the Deadlands Weird West companion. I'll talk about it now. Usually these are pretty good deals because you can usually get the book and the audiobook. So if you want to get the book, you can get the book and the audiobook for like $25, which is like you get the audiobook basically for free. And you just pay for the book. So highly recommend checking out those Kickstarters because that's usually like a really good option for people. Going down, licensee Spotlight. This is happening. This keeps happening. Starbreaker, Saints and Synners for Savage Worlds. The Kickstarter. We're going to talk about that a lot more here in a moment. But that's in the newsletter, so I got to mention it. Crowdfunding stuff. Necessary Evil 3 USA order shipped. I don't really care about that because I didn't back it, but I wish I had. So I guess it's good that means I can go out and buy it now. But 20th anniversary celebration stuff has begun shipping. Some people I've seen already have gotten their shipments, which I'm kind of jealous about because I haven't gotten my tracking number yet. So I hope I get that tracking number. And then let's see here. Deadlands Night Train. So the shipping pledge manager is closing October 8th. And the news that came out from Pinnacle is that they have already received in their warehouse everything that all the stuff to ship. So they can start shipping as soon as the pledge manager basically closes. And as soon as they're done with, obviously going to focus on 20th anniversary stuff first. But as soon as they're done with that, they can immediately turn around and start shipping the Deadlands Night Train stuff. And that they said this came early. That never happens. Super exciting. I mean, I'm excited.
Well, I'm excited because they're talking about striking at the docks, so it's a good thing it came in now because it might not come until next year if they don't get it. If they hadn't got it now.
Yeah, I think I heard about that strike. Like the first time I heard about that strike was on the last stream. I was like, oh, didn't know about that. Glad that's not something I have to worry about right now. And then also we have a lot of other products and things that are happening that we're going to have to get into. You know, we're still waiting for until it's going to take a little bit of time. But I'm super excited to get that. Part of the reason I'm super excited to get the Deadlands Night Train stuff is because I did like the all-in Kickstarter, meaning that I'm going to be getting my first ever box set of the Deadlands stuff itself. So actually, I don't have Deadlands right now. It's on my shelf. There's no Deadlands. Huh?
That'll be amazing to get that then.
Yeah. So I'm super excited to just get Deadlands on my shelf. So that'll be fun. Looking over to, we're going to kind of switch over to talking about Kickstarters now. So first off, Broken Earth. We met with Matthew last week to talk about Broken Earth. If you want to watch that live stream, go take a look at it. The Kickstarter for Broken Earth ends Thursday, October 17th. So go check out that Kickstarter. All these Kickstarters, by the way, are linked below, as well as a link to sign up for the newsletter if you just want to read it yourself and not join my stream every week to hear it talked about. And the Battlelords for the 23rd century, Charlie Foxtrot. I can't remember. They did. It's on the bottom of this little thing here, but it's like Charlie Foxtrot. But what's that?
It is Charlie Foxtrot.
Is it just? I was thinking there's another word there. Maybe it's just Charlie Foxtrot. But yeah, try Foxtrot, the book for it's a book of, like, I believe it's adventures and stuff. We're gonna talk a little more about this next week once I have them on the stream. And their product, this Kickstarter launched today. It's going to go till the end of the month, ends Thursday, October 31st. So check that out. Again, launching today, Deadlands Abominable Northwest. Coming, sorry, it says coming Thursday. That should say ends. It ends Thursday, October 24th. And then Starbreaker ends Sunday, October 27th. Let's get into talking about that one. Oh, wait, I have one more. There's one more. There's also this one. I talked about it already. Check this one out. Ends October 10th. This is the one that's ending the soonest. So check it out. Really good deal. But this is the one we're going to talk about now, because it looks really cool. And, we had these guys on that came all their way over the internet to talk about it.
All the way to my desk.
Yeah,
I'm really glad to hear you say it looks really good, because again, that is Brandon as the art director. He makes almost everything look really, really good. And our artists, I believe that's Ron Root, isn't it?
That cover, no, that is a Zach Dolan piece still.
Okay.
That
Well,
was,
we've got some really talented guys that do the artwork. That's what I was trying to get at.
Okay. Well, let's start with maybe who you guys are then, because Ross, what I'm hearing so far is, Brandon. Ross, who are you, and what do you do, and where are you from, and all those kind of bits.
Okay, sure. Well, I'm Ross Watson. I've been in the game industry for 24 years. I've worked on a bunch of stuff, but I'll stick to just Savage Worlds for tonight. I was a lead developer on Savage Rifts. I did a bunch of stuff for Last Parsec and Lankamar, and thank you. Lankamar, Last Parsec, Weird Wars. I created my own setting called Accursed for Savage Worlds.
I love it.
Thank you.
And I want to see it reprinted for Suede.
That we're working on that.
Okay, good. That's what. Yeah. I was going to wait till the end to talk about that, but I wanted to talk about this since you mentioned it. I'll talk about it now.
Sure. And Brandon and I have been partners for a while. I've been helping get a bunch of stuff across the finish line, like the Secret World for Savage Worlds, which is our most recent. Yep, there it is. Look at that
cover too.
Templars.
Yes, it's Templar cover. This is not, if you try to buy this is not the cover you're going to get, but this is the book. So.
And that's our
might make that cover available for a little while again.
And our most recent release is also one of my products, which is the Enemies Unleashed book for Savage Supers,
which is just fantastic.
Thank you.
Yes, if you watched the live streams before, you have seen the Kickstarter mentioned about that one as well. So if there's any Kickstarters, we try to make sure we know about them here.
But the real beating heart of Star Anvil Studios is Brandon Verhalen, and I will turn it over to him.
All right, Brandon. Yeah, same thing. Who are you? What do you do? And where are you from?
I'm Brandon. I'm from I live in Missouri now. I won't say I'm from Missouri. I just, what do I do? I am making games. I mean, I thought it would be easy 7 years ago when I kind of started. And to put it in perspective, 7 years ago I started on Starbreaker, although we were just calling it Saints and Sinners at the time. And, I had to learn a lot along the way. So, learning art, because visually representation of the game was so important to me, because I had a lot of inspiration come from like Riffs art, the old original Palladium Riffs, and in comics and stuff for a lot. So you can see a lot of the art is very comic oriented style. That's what I generally bring to the stuff I do. And then of course, Starbreaker is the one I started writing a long time ago. So this is 20 years ago. I kind of started on the idea, but 7 years ago, I started pursuing to make an actual game. So, I founded this little company and we started making games. And that's what we do. We make games, and that's who I am. Just some guy who wanted to do something easy.
Something easy, and then you're like, oh, this isn't. No, not well, and now you're making several games and partnering with, companies like I can't remember the name of the company that makes
Funcom?
The Secret World. Funcom. Yeah, partnering with Funcom to make a tabletop role playing game for their video game. So for those who didn't know, The Secret World is originally a video game.
Yes, an MMO. Yeah,
it was originally an MMO. I played it. I played it a little bit just to get a sense of it before around you guys were doing the Kickstarter for it, and because I really enjoy MMOs. I got through the tutorial, knows about it, unfortunately. But it was originally an MMO, and now it's in tabletop form. Yep. But we're not here to talk about Secret World. we're here to talk about this project that you said you've been working on for 20 years and 7 years seriously. I remember when back during when Suede was first coming out, and there was a whole bunch of quick starts that came out, jump starts, and I got my hands on that one on the Saints and Sinners, as well as called back then. Still in the title, but it's not just that anymore. And I actually have it printed out in a binder, not over here. It's in my other binder over there. So I was trying to create a binder of just a whole bunch of one shots and quick starts and stuff to play through. I unfortunately have not gotten to play it, but I have read through it several times. And it's printed out and ready. Now it's updated. So it's now Starbreaker, Saints and Sinners. I think we'll talk more later about what that means, or I'll ask you more what that means.
Okay.
But let's just start with saying, what is your elevator pitch for Starbreaker?
I hate when people ask me for an elevator pitch. I always go Ross, but I think that we've kind of settled on it's kind of like Suicide Squad meets The Mandalorian as a good kind of ish description.
Okay, that definitely tracks with what my thoughts were as well. So cool. All right, so yeah, so why is it like Suicide Squad? Let's start there. And I'm gonna also ask, because as we kind of get into things later, is it like is Starbreaker like Suicide Squad, or is the Saints and Sinners subtitle like Suicide Squad?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
So in Suicide Squad, obviously they're all criminals and they're basically working off their sentence. I originally kind of was inspired by Leverage and The Dirty Dozen, but Suicide Squad's a more modern thing people more recognize.
Sure.
And the whole thing is, it's called Saints and Sinners, and sinners is a slang term for people who work for the syndicate or are criminals. And every saint is a sinner, but not every sinner is a saint, because saint recruits the sinners to, make them go infiltrate the criminal underworld, because now they have a believable criminal who's going to fit in and be able to do the things they need to take it down from the inside. They get a little thing implanted in their head. It's not going to blow up. That's a little bit rough. It's called a NIC, neural interface computer. Control, I should say. I think my brain, I write it, but I can't remember everything I wrote. But the point is, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, it can shock your character and force them to do it. We don't actually make you do it. There's some role playing options with that, but in the end, it's the characters are under the control of Saint, doing the things that they're told to do to earn off their sentence. So,
yeah. How would you? I know there's a lot of history in the game. If you're, and by the way, guys, as you're hearing this, if you're thinking that you do want to check this out, or just even if you want to like read through a preview document, the Jumpstart is linked down below in the description. So if you want to go check out the Jumpstart, just check that out, and then you can just get more of a sense of what the game is, so that then you can go to the Kickstarter and back it. So check that out. So diving a little bit further into the setting, how would you? We kind of got an idea. Okay, you said it's like Mandalorian, and you a little bit like Suicide Squad. I didn't ask yet how it's like the Mandalorian, so I'll ask that first.
Okay.
How is it like Mandalorian?
Well, it's depends where you are in the setting itself, but a lot of the action that I picture people starting off playing in mostly is in the rim worlds, the where the syndicate has control. You got a lot more criminal activity. You have a lot less government, more old west frontier-esque type survival in some areas, and then you have mining towns, although it's much a bigger scale. We're talking epic sci-fi type scale. So you have that sort of like picture when the Mandalorian walks into look behind me. You see all the friendly people there. That's your typical cantina scene, Star Wars. It's that whole a danger around every corner. Who can you trust? And it's a hard life. The reason people are sinners or work for the syndicate is because there's not a lot of options in the rim worlds. So it's kind of like the theme and the feel of it in that particular part of the setting.
Yeah. So Sorry. So it's like so we have it's like Suicide Squad. It's like Mandalorian. So we got the things that it's like, which I think is very helpful for people to just know what they're getting into and try to relate to something that some media they are used to.
Mhm.
How would you say that the Starbreaker is unique in its own right from on its own? Like, what would you say is the unique part of it?
I mean, all stories are inspired by something else. So unique is it's. I I think what makes it stand out to me is its focus on, looking at the world from the eyes of the criminals, and the criminals aren't
Mm,
necessarily bad people. They're doing it's there's not a lot of good choices. So you
right.
can be a bad person and make bad choices. You can be a good person being forced to make the best bad choices you can make. And so I think that focus of instead of like, Star Trek focuses on so much like a more perfect world, you
Mhm.
know. At least that's the hope, and it focuses on hope and such. And Star Wars is this big struggle against the Empire and the rebellion, generally speaking, or Jedi's against the light and dark. This is
Right.
just a guy saying, I want to survive till tomorrow. And to do that, what am I willing to do?
Yeah.
And some of the choices are taken away from you. I mean, again, in a role playing, depends how your GM runs it, but now you're working for Saint. Well, I guess that's the choice I have if I don't want to spend life in a prison.
Yeah.
I mean, so that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the unique things about it is it's got unlikely heroes that are, like you said, they're not fighting for a great cause. Like they're not going up against the Emperor, or they're not trying to explore the galaxy for the good of mankind. It is gritty. It is
Mhm.
the edge of known space. There's not a lot out here to rely on other than yourselves. We like to say that uh, the cold and uncaring stars watch you chart your course.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what he
Awesome.
said.
So let's start kind of getting into like what's in the book. So we have an idea of like the setting, but let's talk about like what we have. You get the book in front of us, what's going to have, what we're going to see. One of the things that we do see in the jumpstart is that you you just this idea of professions.
Hmm.
People, each character gets a profession that they start out with. I think, and if I'm off base, you let me know. But it's reminiscent to me of like class edges from Savage Pathfinder, or even just like where you get certain kind of starting
Yeah,
stuff.
that's a reasonable comparison. I mean, they're not as strong as those edges, but they're
Right.
more. The idea is to make it matter that if you are going to be an engineer and you pick those things, you'll be a better engineer than the person who doesn't.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, there's a little bit of that there. So that's, but they're not like gonna change the course of the game. There was more
Sure.
inspired by my original inspiration came from when you look at the Huckster and then you look at the Hexslinger. It was that kind of inspiration, which is
Mm.
honestly similar to how the class edges are. That you have to have the space edge, and then you can build more into a particular version of a character. But they're again not quite as powerful.
Right. But in the game, you start out with one.
Hmm.
So you choose one, and that kind of gives you a sense of who you are,
Yep.
which is helpful. And one of the things I'd like, I mean, the one that we see in the Jumpstart is is it the thief,
Hmm.
right? Yeah.
That's one
And
of them.
when hmm?
That's one of them. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's the in the Jumpstart that is. Uh, One of the things I really liked to see was like one of the abilities was um digital lockpicks where you can use either is it either hacking or electronics, I believe.
Hmm. I believe
Uh
that's correct.
or is it like sorry, usually people would use one or the other, whoever one's the lowest. And I like seeing this is actually a more of a comment on other, not even that profession, just a comment that I'd like to see is when people do have things that have multiple possibilities, like electronic. I have to hack. Is that electronics? Or is that hacking? And you say it's the lower of the two. Which one are you worse at? That
Hmm.
one's the one that's going to matter. And I liked that idea. I think it was electronics and lockpicking or thievery rather, not hacking. But you get the point. So I had to see that kind of mechanics. And it's fun to see that kind of mechanic in the game. There's also some new arcane backgrounds, which are not really arcane per se, right?
Right.
Do you want to talk about those?
Sure. I mean, arcane backgrounds is the term that Savage Worlds uses for
Yeah.
anything like that. So we just kept obviously the naming conventions the same, so people know what they're looking for. But it especially shows up in things like cyborgs, where I've always had this thing when you play someone as a cyborg in a game, they are objectively better than a regular character. There's always some kind of drawback they say, but those drawbacks usually don't, either they're way too much or they don't show up at all in the game really. So you got this guy who's a cyborg whose power is always on. So I looked at it and said, well, what if I made it the concept that your cybernetics, like if you got legs, you can walk normally, but when you want to jump really far or run really fast, that takes an extra level of power. It's power points, but that's the generator that can boost you for a while, and then it has to recharge. And that kind of keeps it on par with other characters and other arcane backgrounds. They're not so objectively better and undefeatable that it makes it everyone should just be a cyborg or not. So that's
that's one of the beauties. I mean, Savage Worlds in general, but also just like of the powers is that you can just trap them whatever way you want, and you can just modify the game to make it fit. I did like this is the cyborgs in the Jumpstart as well, and I really liked the kind of the downside you had, like your alternative to critical failure for them, where depending on what your implant was, this is for the implants. That you got a different hindrance if you quickly failed, like that the thing stops working for a moment, and now you have a hindrance that you have to work on until a certain point where your system comes back online.
If you had a cybernetic arm and it failed, you would have the 1-arm hindrance until your end of your next turn. So the turn you're in and all the next turn. So not ridiculously long, but long enough to affect you in a game, especially when most Savage Worlds combats are probably like 3 to 5 rounds max.
Right. Yeah.
So it makes a difference.
100%. The one I thought was actually really funny was you had one that was like your face can change, so it's like the disguise power, and so if that fails, you now the ugly hindrance. I was like, that's great. I loved it. It was
it
makes me think of the D&D movie where they're like his clone just starts
melting right there. Yeah, kind
of great. Okay, so we have new arcane backgrounds. We have new edges called new professions that you can start out with, as well as some like other edges that get for different professions. Now we saw the thief profession. What other kind of cool professions can we expect in the full core book?
Well, the Psi Commando is pretty cool. I like that.
I was just about to say Psi Commando.
Yeah, that's my favorite because essentially the character that represents the Psi Commando, not the new ones I redid, but a lot of the Psi Commando art has always been basically the character I play when I play it. It's me if I had hair and I was in shape. Neither is true. But there's also the Psi Operative, and I broke that up a little bit because Psi Commando, they physically affect the world more. The Psi Operative is going to read your mind, puppet you, and more the mental things. Think Babylon 5, Psi Cops, and kind of stuff like that, if you're familiar with that. And then there's Cyborg and the Hypertech, I think, are the that's the 4 arcane backgrounds. And then there's still a Thief, Bounty Hunter,
now
Pirates.
the professions are really cool, but it's also important to point out we have a ton of really, really neat aliens.
I was going to get to that next.
I'm skipping ahead, I know, but
no. Because one of the things I noticed and just about the Jumpstart, I was like, okay. So through, I was like, wait, where's the aliens? Oh man, they saved all the aliens for themselves. So what kind of cool alien races can we expect? Since we have no preview of that.
Which one is your favorite one, Ross?
I like the Volcalassi. They are the more canine-esque of the races. And I mean, Brandon can tell you more about them, but I love the way they look. I love the way they act in game. They're my favorite if I had to pick one. Now I know what Brandon's favorite. I know what Brandon's wife's favorite is, but he can tell you himself.
Yeah, my favorite is the Vukola Sai as well, and my wife loves the Nakira the bat ones. Funnily enough, but it's the bats are short, she's short, so she gets along with them. But there's quite a few. There's the whole concept is that there was this ancient race that evolved species, and it was easy to just use animals as a baseline, so you always can relate to kind of like their behavior or their concept behind that. So you have the Zaka, which are a snake-like species. You have the Hopak, which are like giant rhino people. Which again, if you want to play something big and beefy, that's pretty cool. You got a certain feel you want for it. There's the Septrids, which are the snakes. There's the Dunar, which they kind of get the short end of the stick because in the story, they were the big evil ancient aliens that came back, genetically cloned and built tens of thousands of them to fight the war. So they're not well liked because they are the face of war that came and attacked and destroyed worlds. So now that they've been freed from that, from the evil aliens, so to speak, they're still not liked a lot, not trusted. They've had to make their way in the world and get through that. So they end up being a lot of those people end up being out on the rim because that's where people will still let them work. They don't want them in the empire proper because they were the ones that were killing everyone. Trust is not there. And so those are some of the aliens that come to mind right off the top of my head. Plus, we got 3 new ones if we hit the stretch goal.
Nice. Yeah.
So
take out those stretch goals. Gotta get as much content as possible.
Yeah, I want lots of content. So everyone back.
So we have new races, new edges, new hindrances. I know there's a few in the Jumpstart. New professions. Now one of the things that you guys I think mentioned in the Kickstarter is that the need for the science fiction companion. What from the science fiction companion do people need to look out, like what from the science fiction companion or do people need for the game? And let's say someone gets Starbreaker and they only have the core rule book. What would they be missing out on?
So because we are licensing the rules from Pinnacle, we can't put all the rules for, say, starship building in there.
Sure.
We really can't put any of the rules in there for it. We can name what a thing is, like stealth is on. We can put the ship stats and say it has stealth. You need to refer to the sci-fi companion for it. So if you're going to do starship combat or you want to build your own starship, I mean, our book would have been ridiculously big if we tried to design our own starship system anyway. And most sci-fi games, if you buy them, have a separate book for the tech. So it just so happens there's already a book for that. So that's what you need it for. You don't really need it for a lot else. We got some basic amount of weapons and gear and armor in there. You could play the game without it pretty well.
Okay.
But it's fair to say you do need it if you want that part. So a lot of people will be able to play the game and almost never reference the sci-fi companion. There's other people are going to want to build starships and they're going to want to build new equipment and they're going to want to look at all the they want to add some aliens and use the monsters. Like it's got a great bestiary. So it's a really good complement. And like I said, so it's fair for us to say you need it, but you don't need it.
Sure. So it may depend on your group and how you play. If you're the kind of group that just kind of hand waves star travel, now you're there, go interact with people. Might be okay.
Yeah, cool. You could pretty much bypass the sci-fi companion at that point, but I still think it would be a great compliment to have. It would probably really make your experience of playing Starbreaker all the much better by having it on hand. Sure,
100%. Yeah, cool. No, I just think it's helpful just for people to know like how much. For people who for some reason don't have it, getting a feel for.
They wouldn't be hamstrung really. They could just say, "Hey, star travel's not a big thing. We're going to focus on until I get the book, or if they ever get the book."
Cool. Now I would like to talk about how originally this was Saints and Sinners, and now it's Starbreaker Saints and Sinners. And I think I heard somewhere, I can't remember where, if it was like a Facebook post or a Reddit post or you and I talking, that now that it's Starbreaker, there might be some future plans for the Starbreaker universe. Expand on that?
Brandon's a really talented guy, and he comes up with a lot of great ideas. And when we were sitting down and looking like all the things that we could do for Saints and Sinners, we were like, actually, there's a whole universe here. It's not just the Saints and the Syndicates. There's a whole bunch more going on. There's bounty hunters. There's wars and space marines. There's a exploration arm, the Aero teams. There's a bunch of really, really cool stuff. And the idea was, well, if we come up with a name for the overall idea, like all these things, because they all do come under the same heading, then Saints and Sinners can be a part of that without being the number one that everything flows from. And Brandon came up with the name Starbreaker and the logo, and it looks really great, I think. So
Yes, looks really good.
So Starbreaker is the name of this set because there's a whole bunch of things underneath that can and probably will be expanded on. And Saints and Sinners is one piece of that. It's probably the biggest and most decorated piece of the cake, but there's definitely more that we will come out later on.
Some additional expansion guides, maybe some additional settings, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, obviously depends on the level of success that we can produce, but I do think there will be at least, like, I'm working on nominally a Star Marine supplement, which, I already have art for the Star Marines. I have vehicles for it already because I did that art. I don't have a color, but I had some drawings done. I have enough information to build it, and it's not like it's going to be like 100 pages necessarily. I mean, who knows what it could be, but the point is there's so many things we can add on by having this foundation, because there's a good amount of history and world building there. To the core of, like Ross said, the core of the universe is probably Saints and Sinners, because that kind of sets the tone. But all that other stuff can go there. I mean, like you mentioned, Arrow. Every time I've run Saints and Sinners, when I call it Starbreaker or whatever, I've run a different version of it. I ran Arrow one time, which is sort of like the Coast Guard in space and other things it does, kind of rescue. And I've run a pure group of sinners trying to get through the galaxy who were never touched by Saint. I've run a Saint campaign. I've always run it differently, and that's I was like, I keep running it differently. Ross like, yeah, you've got all these ideas. You're focusing too much on this one thing, and you're naming it, and you're going to lock yourself in. He kept telling me, you're going to lock yourself in if you don't kind of let people know it can be more. And I was like, well, you might be right, because I'm notoriously stubborn. But I like people who challenge my thought. You have to prove to me why you're right, and if you do that, then I'm definitely going to stick with it. Like, because I want to know, why you disagree with me or something. And Ross really brought that up and really got me to see it. And so, a lot of credit goes to him to reminding me about that for about 6 months.
Well, I think, like he said, the logo looks great. I think the art looks really good. A lot of the updated art, all the art we're seeing, like in the Kickstarter and everything, looks really good. Even just like looking through the Jumpstart again today, I was actually kind of reminded how good the art looked, and even like the layout. Who did get your guys' layout?
So Alita Saxon did the layout for this version. We had some different people before as we went through changes and who was available when we did it. Artists, we originally started off. I started off with a guy named Samir Veskovic, who was in Bosnia. Unfortunately, he got really busy. Life was crazy, so I had to find another artist group. And we got hooked up with I looked for a comic book artist, and Zach Dolan, who was part of Unlikely Heroes Studios at the time, did all the pencils. I still have his actual hand-drawn pencils of most of the original art that got sent to me. And then, Lori Foster did the inking, and Everardo Orozco, who now works for a video game company, did all the colors for the original art. And then, unfortunately, several years ago, Zach passed away. I believe it was a heart attack. Then get direct. We talked through emails and stuff. We weren't like hanging out type people. That was through the studio. And that kind of stunted us for a while. Just kept looking for new artists, and I found Ben Worrell, who does a lot of the new art, and Kate Finnegan did a lot of colors, and James Denton, who also does stuff for Pinnacle, does a lot of the current colors for me now too. So we have quite a few artists and people we're working with to really, because we're always trying to raise the bar of the way the art looks, trying to, like, if you think I'm happy with the art, I'm never happy with the art. It's just, well, this is good enough for now, but can we make it better on the next pass and the next piece and so on? So we're always trying to make it better.
Well,
I think everyone's great. Don't get me wrong. Just we always want to improve.
Sure. Yeah, no, I like the lace of the comic book art style. I like that. I like but I like the style of the comic book art style, because like there's like throughout comic books there's different art styles even within comics, and the particular one that I've seen a lot of, like the front cover, like the picture in your background, Brandon, like that particular style is something that appeals to me. Maybe it's, I think part of it's like brighter colors, like more saturation. that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and it's just something to the style that I'm really enjoying. So
Because that was a 1990s type art inspiration, so everything looks like if you're in the 90s, everything I do is like probably like 1990s inspired comic book art is what I look for. So
Yeah, it's like
That-
it's like Image Comics doing The Expanse. It's the way I like to think of it.
I can't say I'm that familiar with comics to say yes or no on that, but sure.
just
Fair
say
enough.
yes, it'll be fine.
Yeah, sure, 100%. It makes sense. I grew up in the '90s, and that's probably when I did read comics, that was probably it was '90s comics. So no, I think that, but I am happy with the art. Looks great, and I like from the mechanics that we were able to see inside the Jumpstart. I really enjoy kind of the directions you guys are taking with different mechanics and how they're interacting with the Savage Worlds rule set, because that makes things more fun. So you have future plans. You guys you have some ideas for the future, nothing maybe specific. How has the reception been to Starbreaker overall as people you've talked to? I mean, I know you've talked to a lot more people than just me about it. How
I mean, when I've run it at conventions, people have liked it. I've run it at several conventions. We've had some other people running conventions. I know DeFoggy, Ross ran it. The Birchers have run it. I know DeFoggy ran it at Gen Con, and he said that his table was louder than the demos for the other Deadlands stuff going on, just because they were having a good time. It doesn't mean, but those were short demos, so
Sure,
it's like
sure,
you had
sure.
a team. So I had really excited people just going at. So that's cool. People seem to really like it. We have over 500 people have the Jumpstart. So hopefully those people will see that it's out and available and pick it up. But I mean, I haven't had anyone who has said they didn't like it or had a bad reaction to playing it. And it was more like, wow, this is really fun. I'll check it out some more. I mean, yeah, seems to be a really positive experience for people when they check out the setting as far as the look and feel of it. Part of it's like when Ross runs a game, he's amazing, so people get it's the GM when the direct contact with people run a game is that energy you bring to it. And so far I've had really good people running the games to bring the energy to making the setting exciting.
Cool.
Even if I think it's amazing.
I realized I didn't ask this earlier when we were talking about the content of the book, but I want to go back to the content of the book, so I want to ask this now. Adventures. One of the things that I look for in a lot of Kickstarters, a lot of projects, a lot of books is there adventures either in the book or as a separate book that's available, and or is there a adventure generator?
Well,
you just named one of Brandon's favorite things.
There is an adventure generator.
Perfect. I love adventure generators.
And we do have one adventure specifically being written for this. This first mission was called Mission Alpha, so the next one is Mission Bravo. And then, again, depending on how well we do, I do have some people lined up to potentially do some one sheets to add in there. And long term, I am planning on working towards some regular releases of, like, say, one sheets to keep things in between releases going. We'll see how far we get with it. Again, just depends on how things go.
Yeah. Do you desire, and I'm not committing you to anything, but do you guys desire to put out like a plot point campaign at some point?
I would love to, but the cost of doing a good plot point campaign, because that's a lot of writing art, is probably going to be prohibitive. I mean, so far today we've done good. We've done $6,000. But if I was to do a good plot point campaign, it's going to be 50 pages or so. And you're talking new art, new creatures, maybe, or some. We'd have to be doing a lot better to make that a realistic goal right now. But maybe as a future expansion,
Sure,
quite possibly.
Awesome. Well, I'm just glad to hear that it has an adventure generator. I think the adventure generator I think none of people just use those adventure generators in general to kind of get ideas. I think that one of the best games I've ever run, or some of the best games I've ever run, have been from me making something up based on adventure generators, which is funny because usually you have like so much less details with adventure generators. You may just have like a set of like 5 words that tell you what's going on, and yet when you're filling in your own details, you can make it a lot more connected to the players. You can make it way more based on the story that's happened so far, and kind of create your own scene and that makes things really exciting for the players to enjoy too. So some of my best adventures I've run have been from adventure generators. So it's always good to see adventure generators built into the books.
You got one in there.
Is it dice based or card based?
I actually have to remember now. I believe I did it with cards. Did we do cards or dice? I'd have to look. Because right now I'm so busy with other stuff. I don't remember, how did we set that up? So
the Kickstarter takes a lot of attention.
I got it. Yeah, no, I can't imagine how much work everything goes into, one, making a book in the first place, and then also, okay, got to do the social media, got to do the Kickstarter, got to come on live streams and talk to silly people about asking
those live streams.
Those live streams. That's awesome. All right, so is there anything else about Starbreaker that I did not ask about that you want me to talk about, or do you want to talk about?
Well, you talked about the aliens, the professions, the arcane backgrounds. There's a starship blueprint that's cool. If you just want, I think starships. The reason I included a blueprint, even though there's not a lot of space combat, to me the starship is less about going into combat than it becomes the player's home.
So
and
it's more like a
base. Yeah. When the players feel like they own something that matters, it gives them a place. It kind of makes the setting seem more real. So I think that's a pretty cool thing to have. And then, there's really, like the adventure generator, like you covered and such. So I think that's, you covered the main things. And then, like you said at the beginning, there's a lot of history. There's a pretty good chunk of story. I even trimmed out a little bit of it that I thought was unnecessary for the book right now. That gives you a lot of background. And I guess this is the last thing to say about what I really liked is I went through and I would go, wow, this looks like a plot idea. This is like a plot thread. So Daryl Hardy, who really went over this with me and really helped me take my ideas that I'd written and really make them even better. I'd say, hey, can you turn these into some plot threads? So those will be off the side. So even though you have the adventure generator, you're also going to be reading through and go, oh, story idea, story idea, story idea. So there's quite a few of those in there too. So you could read the book, go, oh, I could run that. It's a paragraph, but now I have an idea. If they go there, this should happen. If you find it interesting.
I mean, one of the coolest things to talk about is the way that you set up your campaign as a factor of building your characters. It's the idea of choosing your crew type.
Okay.
And this is something that Daryl Hardy came up with that is it's really, really cool. I know that Brandon likes it. You can have a heist team, or you can be infiltrators. You could be a strike unit, enforcers, or magnets, not like fridge magnets, but like magnates, like guys that go into business, troubleshooters. You can do basically anything from Han Solo to Traveler, and it's an idea of like your group kind of comes together and they build their characters, and as part of that they decide, well, we're going to do our focus is going to be this thing, and that is a little hook that you can hang all kinds of adventures and stories off of.
And you get an edge for it.
You even get an edge for it. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so there's a mechanical incentive for the group to come to a consensus on what is the thing that we as a group do.
Exactly.
That's really cool. I like that a lot. That's a lot of.
It's about team building, literally, in the sense that. So Coriolis had this idea, and when I read through that book, I said, Daryl, I like this idea. Make this cool for Savage Worlds, please. And he did. And like Ross said, it puts that group together so that a lot of times you start like, who are we? What are we doing? And everybody has these different ideas, and it takes a while for the group to gel and kind of get on task. And the GM's like, well, what am I running? When you make a sandbox world, which is what Saints and Synners Starbreaker are supposed to be, to a degree, you want to kind of like, well, it's a sandbox, but we want to have at least 4 walls. Like, you got a big area to build in, and so that really helps kind of put the group down direction. And Ross is right for bringing that up, because that's probably one of the cool things to add in there.
No, yeah, that's really cool. No, I am like,
so
I've been hearing a lot of really cool ideas recently. I'm like, gotta write that down at some point.
I mean, it's worth noting we got like 14 professions. We got 12 different alien races plus humans. Big old setting section that talks about the galaxy and the wars and the SSA, which is Brandon. Talk about the SSA. because
the
they're
Star Systems Alliance.
yeah, that's kind of the opposition of the syndicates, if you want to think about them as the yin and the yang. You got the sort of the fully in control government versus the criminal organizations on the edge of the galaxy.
Yeah, so the Star Systems Alliance is so originally there was the Star Systems Alliance, and during the war they had to abandon parts of space because they had to pull in and protect their worlds. And so the Rim worlds that was the colony expansion at the time. The Syndicate took over, and the corporations took over another part of space, the corporate worlds. So you have them as well. The corporate worlds is capitalism unrestrained. And so you're not a citizen, you're an employee. And then you have the Syndicate, which is live or die by the sword. And then supposedly you have the rule of law by the Star Systems Alliance, and that's the high view. No one's really a good guy. There is no perfect. The SSA is not perfect. Being free in the world of Synners is not perfect. And the corporate worlds might look pretty, but there's a lot of dirty, underhanded backstabbing in the boardrooms, and they will kill you if they fire you sometimes. So it's all playing around, and so it's a lot of conflict. So players have something to interact with, because a world filled with conflict is more interesting as a player than a world full of peace and happiness, which is great, but not a lot to work against.
Right, and not much to do.
Yeah.
In a sense. Yeah.
Right. And if you sit at home and do nothing, then the universe just kind of crumbles away.
Yeah, and
But
then it's your fault.
Yeah, but if you get involved, you can shift the balance one way or the other. You can help break up the syndicates from within. You can help expose the corruption of the SSA and the corporate worlds. There are ways to make the galaxy better. It's
Very nice.
again unlikely heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned the 12 species, and made me think of another question. Are your species made at +2, +4, +3?
I have to check again, but I think they were +3 on average when we finally finished them.
I can't answer that. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. I think they were originally had gotten up to +4, and I wanted to scale it back. I tried hard not to overbuild because I wasn't looking for that. There was a lot of power creep when I first started creating the game, and I tried to scale
Rein
it
it in a little
down
bit.
because it sounds cool to have all these cool things. Then you just realize, well, if I want to play a big power game, I'll play Rifts, which I love. Savage Rifts is amazing. Good job, Ross.
Thank
you. But I mean, that's what that world is. That's why I want to play there. This is supposed to be grittier, so I try to bring things down a little bit and keep it a little. It's still, how would I put it? Action movie level heroes, criminals. I mean, John Wick universe would be an appropriate, for the level of action I kind of want to see in the game, comic book action. But I didn't want it to be, Michael Bay.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, it sounds like we covered Starbreaker. Because this is the first time I've had you guys on, I did want to talk to briefly about the other things you guys have done at Star Anvil. You guys kind of mentioned, we got the Secret World. It's the most recent thing I've got. You guys did the Enemies Unleashed, and you guys did a Cursed, which I plan on talking about as part of a larger stream in a couple of weeks, where I'm going to talk about some some recommendations for some good horror settings and games and stuff to run for people. And I don't know how this happened, but I was going through all the stuff I owned on TTRPG, and I was like, oh, what is this? What is it? Or no. I found a Cursed on TTRPG, and then I was like, oh, this looks cool. Let me take a look at it. And it's like, you own it. I'm like, wait, what? I own this? So I downloaded it, and I was reading through it, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I think I spent like the rest of the we were on a trip to my parents, and I just spent the rest of the trip just reading through a Cursed, because it just seems like a really cool setting. So sorry, cut things a little bit shorter.
Setting.
Thank you.
Cut things a little bit shorter. So what are the kind of things that Star Anvil that I have not talked about that you guys want to, what else, other kind of things have you guys done?
Well, I mean, Ross could definitely speak to Cursed, because I mean, that's his baby. He had that before I ever met him, and he's done. That's an amazing world. What the witch breeds, I think, are just a really cool concept, and especially like what's the Egyptian mummy type ones?
The mummies.
Okay, the mummies. Well, the way you made that work with, they had to wear parts of their sarcophagi as armor. Just a brilliant concept. I'm enamored with the way he came up with that one. But
yeah, Brandon, what are some other stuff coming up from Starville?
Well, I mean, we're working on. I mean, we're also working towards our next Secret World book. North America and Illuminati. We're going to focus on that and kind of bring that faction in the world and monsters and stories and adventures there. There's a project not yet named until we finish signing some agreements. Another license. And then there's
Knights Arcanum.
Knights Arcanum. Definitely got that a good chunk of the way in there. That's when people like it. That's your like He-Man 90s cartoon, 80s, 90s cartoons, inspired setting.
Yeah, I think someone was just asking about that, I think. On like Reddit, they were like, "Hey, what's a good game for doing like He-Man?" I'm like, "Well," I just did like a quick Google search and found like some quick homebrew stuff that someone had made. And I think someone else might have mentioned Knights Arcanum as a possibility.
Yeah, we have a jumpstart for it, but just like Saints Starbreaker, it took forever. It's in the slow development pipeline, and then toward the end of this year, well, next year I should say, Dominions of Steel is in the pipeline as well. That's big mecha for Savage Worlds, and that's a pretty unique setting because they really did a lot to develop a level that really makes mecha unique and the combat more it's definitely really into it versus just high level, easy. I should say it's not a lightweight setting in a sense. It's got a lot of structure to making mecha really awesome.
Yeah, it's Giant Robots meets Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I might have to think about that for a bit. Okay.
So it's that political intrigue on the one side, and then
giant robot fights.
Then instead of dragons, you have giant robots. Dragon fights, giant robot fights. It's the same thing.
I'm trying to think. There's a show that I watched that had mechs and had a lot of I won't call it. Some of it was political intrigue, but a lot of it was just like called Code Geass. That was.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's a few notches removed, but it's in that same ballpark.
Okay.
We're not at the center of that Venn diagram, but we're definitely in there.
Yeah, got it. Cool. Always easier for me to just connect it to something that media already exists. Hamster Doom says, well, first he says yes plus Knights Arcanum. So super excited about that.
Yeah, Knights Arcanum is going to have some neat mechanics. I think the big one, that bouncing ideas off of Ross that I wanted to have, and again, Ross is like, I like this idea. That's me. I'll say, I like this idea. I want this thing. And I go to someone like Ross or Daryl and say, how do we make this thing? And so sidekicks in that setting are going to matter to your story. Like, in Thundercats, if you're old enough to remember that, they had Snarf. If He-Man, you had Orko. And they're always part of the story. But, in a role-playing game, how does that matter? And Ross can kind of speak to that a little bit more as far as how he kind of worked on that idea a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's way out there. So
it's real rough. Yes.
anything I say would be, just but one of the things I think is really, really cool is the idea that we're going to have a mascot, and mascots are going to be a piece of the rules, because all of those Saturday morning shows had a mascot of some kind, and you should have one on your team. And we have some great pictures of what a fantasy Magitech with some great art of what a fantasy Magitech mascot might look like and how it works in your game, interacting with it. If you help the mascot learn a lesson, you get a resource benefit from that. It's still in the works, but it's something that's really, really cool. And there's really not any settings out there that do this. So also we've got such a strong Saturday morning vibe to it that I think you're going to look through Knights Arcanum and be like, oh, I know what that show is. Okay, I know what that show is. Okay, I know what that show is.
Yeah. I have an idea for a group called the Thunder Clans, and another group that I would call the Illuminates.
Right.
Some people might be able to figure out where the inspiration comes from, but
they're knights with magical light, if that helps.
I don't think he look old enough to remember.
I think our host is
that one
maybe a little too young.
Yeah, that one I'm like, I don't know what that one is. The other ones I was like, yeah, okay, got that. Knights with Magical Light. That one is not hitting me. Sorry.
Inspired by inspired by the Visionaries.
Yeah, which
they had
was
like
a show and
hologram
toy
stuff
line.
on their whole toy. It's another large toy commercial.
Got it. I said all the other ones I'm familiar with. All the other like 80s, 80s, like late 80s shows, early 90s. So I think I don't know. But anyways, point being, awesome. Is there anything else that in general that I've not mentioned that you guys wanted to mention before we close out?
Make sure you keep an eye on StarAnvilStudios.com. We put up a lot of our news there, and we get previews of our stuff, and you can download our jumpstarts.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you want to check out the jumpstart for Starbreaker again, it's down the link below. There's also a link down to the Kickstarter, as well as a lot of the other things we talked about today. So great. Well, yeah, check these guys out. I'm looking forward to just getting my hands on the. I think I'm gonna get the Saints cover. That's the cover I was looking at the 3 different covers. Like, I think I want the Saints cover. So I'm looking forward to that. And thank you all for joining us. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Thank you for joining me after the Pinnacle stream. And enjoy your week, and see you guys all next week as we talk to the Battlelords. Cheers, everybody.
Honk.